What's up, Planeswalkers? It's your boy K-Dog. We're back in Standard with a Temur aggro list. I did something a little bit similar last time with Lutri, back before obviously Companions got nerfed, and now it seems like with the new Companion rule, I don't think Lutri's even playable at all. It was barely even playable before. But, Temur still have some fun stuff to do, so it's pretty similar to what I did last time. However, we got this pretty interesting new card here, which, from my understanding, was pretty powerful last time it was in the Standard. But I was not playing Magic at that time. Quirion Dryad is a 2-mana 1/1, 1 in green. Whenever you cast a spell that's white, blue, black, or red, basically anything that's not green, you put a +1/+1 counter on Quirion Dryad. So what if you did this in a deck that could leverage lots of cheap spells and ways to cast those spells multiple times? You could put a lot of counters on this very, very quickly. Which is pretty nice, but then it is just a 1/1 with a bunch of counters on it. It doesn't have evasion, doesn't have trample, doesn't have flying, doesn't have menace, doesn't really have anything. But we have ways to give it flying. We have ways to kind of really get some value off of that. So Quirion Dryad, we're in all 4 copies here. We also have a Beamsplitter Mage and Dreadhorde Arcanist. That's how we're kind of getting that extra value. Dreadhorde Arcanist, definitely a personal favorite of mine. Saw quite a bit of play early on when it came out in War of the Spark, and has not really seen a whole lot of play since then, but it's a really powerful card. Bans have just happened, so maybe this will kind of make a comeback in certain decks. I think this deck is personally pretty reasonable to run, even in ranked, especially in best of 1 decks like this can do really, really well. Just have these really powerful starts and just kill your opponent out of nowhere. So Dreadhorde Arcanist, if you're not familiar, is a 2-mana 1/3, has trample. 1 mana trample, or 1 power trample. It doesn't sound very good. However, when it attacks, you can cast an instant or sorcery with mana cost less than or equal to its power from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. You have to exile that spell if you play it that way, which is fine. We've already gotten the value off of it, but you can do some pretty crazy stuff with this, which we're about to get to. Especially when you combine it with a Beamsplitter Mage, which is a card that's seen only fringe jank play, but is super, super powerful. It's a 2/2 for blue and red. When you cast an instant or sorcery spell that only targets the Beamsplitter Mage, you can choose one of your other. You can copy that spell and target one of your other creatures, as long as you can normally target one of your creatures that way. So it doesn't let you get around with any kind of protection from a color or anything like that. You still have to have a legal target to copy that onto, and the spell has to literally only target the Beamsplitter Mage. So we do have 1 spell in here that does not work with the Beamsplitter Mage, but pretty much everything else does. And you're going to get some pretty insane value. Hopefully we can showcase this and do some pretty crazy stuff. And for some additional value, Sprite Dragon, just a fantastic card, works really well with the any non-creature spells. We're playing all instant sorceries and creatures here. It's a 2-mana 1/1 flying haste, blue and red. And anytime you cast a non-creature spell of any kind, put a +1/+1 counter on Sprite Dragon. So love me some Sprite Dragon. Super sweet card, especially with Dreadhorde Arcanist and things like that. And then with Beamsplitter Mage and Quirion Dryad, things should get pretty crazy. I've had a lot of fun playtesting this, and was very, very pleased by playing Quirion Dryad, which card I kind of had my eye on, but always kind of sat in the back burner and hadn't really figured out how to play around with it. And then I kind of remember doing this thing before, and it just fit in perfectly. It works really, really well. So we do have maximized altitude here. I was actually looking at Season of Growth here, but then it always just felt almost kind of slow and not quite right. It is a green, so it doesn't really target. Doesn't synergize with a Quirion Dryad in terms of giving it a counter, whereas maximized altitude does. And maximized altitude does give our Dryad flying and has jumpstart as well, so we can potentially cast this multiple times. And it's a 1-mana spell, so obviously it works with Dreadhorde Arcanist just as it's with its natural 1 power. And then having a creature get +1/+1 and flying into end of turn for a single blue mana is pretty reasonable, especially when you can get a bunch of counters and things like that. You can get through for a lot of damage. For our tempo here, we have 4 unsummons. We don't really care about killing our opponent's creatures, anything like that. We can just get them off the battlefield for a turn, slow our opponent down, and clear the path so we can attack them for damage. This deck does super well. Just having those 1 or 2 turns where you can have a clear attack, you can just get through for a ton of damage out of nowhere. And so shocks, anything like that, we don't care. We just want to bounce whatever creature, small creature, big creature, just get something out of the opponent's way, get those prowess triggers, get those counters, and just crash through for a bunch of damage. 4 Infuriates here. Obviously, Giant Growth is the better card at 1 mana, +3/+3, but it's green, and we want to play Infuriate instead, so we can get those +1 counters on our Quirion Dryad. So we're running Infuriate instead. So target creature goes +3/+2. almost as good as the giant growth. We also have Samut's Sprint to give our creature +2/+1 haste. And also the Scry is pretty relevant as well in a deck like this. You don't want to draw too many lands, and you don't want to draw creatures when you're looking for a spell, or if you're stuck on one creature, you might want to get a second creature out because you have some good spells in your hand and things like that. So that Scry is actually pretty important. Obviously, all 4 copies here of the Dreadhorde Arcanist. Also have a little bit more spice here, and 2 copies of Raking Claws, 2 mana instant speed. Target creature gains double strike until end of turn, and cycling 2. So it's Raking Claws is a really fantastic card to essentially double your creature's power. So we have so all 4 Dryads, all 4 Beamsplitter Mage, all 4 Sprite Dragons, and finally here we have Collision Colossus and Domri's Ambush. So Collision Colossus, we might need to collision something if there's a big flyer on our opponent's side, but for the most part, pretty much every time, no matter what our opponent's doing, we want the Colossus side. Like if you put this on Dreadhorde Arcanist pre-combat, you go to combat, you attack the Dreadhorde Arcanist, you can play your Colossus again. If you have a Beamsplitter Mage out, you can Colossus targeting your Beamsplitter Mage. It'll copy targeting, say, your Dreadhorde Arcanist if you have that one out, or if you just Quirion Dryad, you'll get those counters from playing the Colossus, and then Beamsplitter Mage will get the copy trigger, and then it just gets insane. And so you just by copying by casting a single spell, you're punching through for like 10 trample damage on 2 creatures out of nowhere. And Domri's Ambush is the one card that does not synergize with the Beamsplitter Mage because we're targeting a creature we control and we're targeting a creature or a planeswalker on our opponent's side as well. So that does not actually, we don't actually get to copy that with the Beamsplitter Mage. However, it does work with the Dreadhorde Arcanist because you get the counter on the Dreadhorde Arcanist, making it a 2-power creature. Domri's Ambush, of course, is a 2 mana spell, so you can fight something, kill a small creature on your opponent's side, go to combat, attack the Dreadhorde Arcanist, play it from your graveyard with the Arcanist trigger, kill something else, and get through for 3 trample damage just with the Dreadhorde Arcanist alone. So got a little bit of value there. We're super simple, aggressive deck. Topping out at 2 mana, everything is pretty much 1 or 2 mana. See all these 2 mana spells. This is just the Collision Colossus because it counts as 6 or a 4 technically because it adds them up, but it's a 2 mana spell. So we're running 22 lands, which is a little bit higher than you want to be, but since we're in 3 colors, you need those extra lands to find the right color of lands. So you need 22 lands. You don't want to go obviously any more than that, but I don't think you want to go any less than that either, because then you're going to be struggling to find the color that you need. And we have the Beamsplitter Mage and Sprite Dragon, which have these intense mana costs. And being able to play you want to play the spells you want to play when you need to play them. So, and we don't have anything we're actually doing on turn 1. We don't really care about Unsummoning or Infuriate or Samut Sprint or Maximus Altitude on 1. Like if our opponent has a 1-drop, we're not really too worried about unsummoning it. We want to get our creatures down first and then worry about unsummoning and things like that. So we're fine running all 4 Ketria Triomes as our 1 mana play. The fixing is absolutely critical, so we're running all 4 of these. We also have the 2 Fabled Passage for some additional fixing. Of course, all the shock lands, we don't care about our life total. We can just kill our opponent very, very quickly with this deck. So don't care about that at all. And we're mostly red, so 2 mountains. And then we do need to have a basic island and a forest, I believe, here as well. So that's the mana base. So like I said, this deck works pretty amazing in best of 1. I prefer best of 3, so we're going to run it in the best of 3 environment. Haven't really played it too much since the bans happened at the time of I'm recording. They just happened a few days ago. So maybe the sideboard is still a work in progress, but I feel like it's pretty, at least a reasonable starting point, and it feels like it's pretty solid overall. So certainly feel free to change this at your discretion. So I got a couple of Stern Dismissals here for some additional kind of unsummon type tempo plays. A creature or enchantment on our opponent's side. Works pretty great. Also Mystic Repeal for enchantments as well. I feel like even though Wilderness Reclamation was banned, there's still some pretty powerful enchantments, and obviously they work against the Heliod's and the things like that of the world. So it's certainly a pretty reasonable card. You could run like Wilt or even Return to Nature in the slot as well, but the fact that it only costs 1 mana feels like it's worth definitely taking a look at. A couple copies here of Ranger's Guile, another 1 mana spell here. Target creature gets +1/+1 and hexproof in the end of turn. Some way to kind of keep our creatures safe, but also the +1/+1, so it's kind of like a Blossoming Defense, if you remember that card, where it gave +2/+2 and hexproof. This is kind of the next best thing. So really just here for the hexproof, but the 1/+1/+1 means it's never like a dead card. You can still use this. even if you don't have to worry about your opponent holding up removal or things like that. Or if they do hold the removal and they do it during combat, we can give it hexproof and your creature gets a +1 boost and you can punch through for additional damage. Aether Gust still kind of a must in that format. There's just so many powerful red and green spells that you need to have an Aether Gust for, Embercleave, etc. Keep safe for some additional protection, and we're a little bit light on card draw, so if we're worried about like our opponent holding up removal and we have to kind of play it a little bit slower, then we kind of need some card draw. So having a spell that counters their removal spell while drawing this card is pretty fantastic. And since we're pretty heavily invested on like having just 1 or 2 creatures out on time, we're not as worried about like sweeper effects as we are about targeted removal, and so that's why I like something like Keep Safe, where it protects us from the targeted removal spells. We also have 2 copies here of the Fire Prophecy. So if our opponent's running something where we just have to kill their creatures, like Priest of Forgotten Gods, and your opponent has like a bunch of 1-drops and things like that, and then they make you sacrifice your Sprite Dragon, your precious Sprite Dragon, we need a kind of way to deal with some of those threats. Or if your opponent's running a Sprite Dragon, you need to keep it off the board and keep the air clear at the same time. Definitely Fire Prophecy makes a lot of sense. And if you're flooding out with too many lands in hand, so you don't need a lot of lands, but you still need to hit the right colors you need, and you still want maybe 3 to 4 lands in the battlefield. So Fire Prophecy helps you kind of filter your draws, as well as you can deal 3 damage and kill a creature, and then choose to take one of your cards that are in your hand, put it on the bottom of your library, and then draw a fresh card. And then 3 copies here of Mystical Dispute. We definitely don't want to be getting into like a counter war, but if we are up against a deck that's running lots of counters, I'm sure Flash is going to be making a comeback. Whether it's Simic or Sultai or whatever the case may be. So basically a 1-mana counter spell is absolutely amazing what we want to do. Obviously it doesn't really synergize with the Dreadhorde Arcanist or any of that kind of stuff, but just the fact that it's so cheap makes it absolutely worth playing, because we want to be as efficient with our mana as possible. That's why we're running things like Mystic Repeal, Ranger's Guile, and things like that. And Keep Safe and Fire Prophecy draws cards, so they're worth running at 2 mana. Aether Gust is just a powerful card, and Mystical Dispute here essentially is going to be a 1-mana counter spell for the most part. Because we just want to close out the game very, very quickly. So that's the deck. We're done with some best of 3. See how it goes. Okay, brings SQRL. Squirrel? Whew, man. I don't think we can say no. Let's see what we draw. Hopefully it's a land. It is a land. Whew. Oh, that's beautiful. Alright, Fabled Passage. Now we can get a green source. And start with a Dryad. And let's get our Dryad down, then we can kind of get these Sprite Dragon and Beamsplitter Mages down and get the additional sweet counter value going. Oh, we don't even have to shock in here just yet. So we'll just play the Dryad still. They got a Dryad, or Druid. No, we got a Dryad. Alright, so we'll go for the Beamsplitter Mage. Okay, Naya, Ramp, Parachute, and Gilded Goose. It's interesting. Play you, get the Beamsplitter Mage down first, get a counter. I don't think our opponent is going to have anything here, so I'm fine with attacking. And then next turn, we have Sprite Dragon plus Infuriate. I think we just kind of go all in. Hold up Colossus for next turn. Oh, Elder Gargaroth, that's pretty good. No. In that case, we'll Colossus here. They do nothing. That can't be right. Okay. I'm not good at math, so we'll have to wait for these triggers to go down. Is that's 7 and 6 plus. Oh, look at that. Oh, is that 20 damage? I mean, you know, I do that all the time. Okay, obviously maximize altitude is terrible if we're up against the Elder Gargaroth. That's how good the deck is. So obviously we're going to bring in those Stern Dismissals and anything else? Yeah, probably just Stern Dismissal. more gems. Alright, up against Essa. One land going first. It's tempting. Any second land with this Triome, and we are off to the races. It's too risky though. Don't love it, but it's 2 lands and we can cycle this Raking Claws worst case scenario. I mean, we do have a Sprite Dragon playable on 2. Once on Terramander. What are the odds they block? Let's bluff. You're playing Mono Blue and you're reading my Sprite Dragon? Okay. They're actually thinking about it. What? Huh. You don't even know what the card is and you want to block it. Alright, I guess we should have held up there. Azorius. Alright, so we got the Beamsplitter Mage. That was a pretty fortunate draw. And a Flash and a Spectral Sailor. You got it. So Azorius Flyers, Azorius Tempo. Staggering Insight? No? Fabled Passage and get us a red source. Just swing 2 here. I could have Unsummons, Brazen Borrowers, any number of things. Just another Spectral Sailor. Obviously if they find another land, and they can start drawing off these Spectral Sailors, that's going to be pretty good for them. And blocking our Sprite Dragon was a little unfortunate. But now it makes sense to have additional 1/1s. But the Terramanders represent some really nice value in the late game. I mean, if this is Azorius Flyers, I'm not sure why they're running Terramander. You probably don't have enough spells. That's super cute. I mean, we attack with our Sprite Dragon, and that probably just cost us the game since they did block with it. Did not expect them to at all. Most decks that are running Terramander probably value their Terramander more in that spot, but we'll just keep attacking here. We'll just pass. I mean, you could ambush one of these sailors. But right now they're just 1/1s, and they still have a bunch of cards in hand, so I'm not really sure that they're going to actually be activating them for card draw. So if they're running like Deploy. Oh, the Fairy is pretty obnoxious. I mean, they can just phase out our Beamsplitter Mage, so... Yeah. Not much we can do there. So a pretty weird deck from our opponent. Alright, maximize altitude. Obviously I'm not flying over their 1/1 flyers and everything. I'm going to bring in the Mystical Disputes though. I'll take out the sprints and bring in the Stern Dismissal to give us more sort of removal. So I'm assuming they can use Teferi there correctly and just phase out our Beamsplitter Mage, and that's pretty brutal for us. So yeah, attacking with the Sprite Dragon was obviously a mistake. I just did not actually expect our opponent to block there. But they called my bluff. Sometimes I think it's worth it. I think you have to kind of just know what kind of cards you're up against and understand what kind of decks it's likely in, and therefore how they're likely to actually use that card. Okay, so they're just a Flyers list. Watcher can get pretty scary, but let's just flood the board with these Dryads. Oops. End the turn here. And then we can start casting stuff and getting these counters and growing our creatures bigger than they can grow theirs. Okay, so they got a swing for 3. It hurts, or 4, because they get the +1 boost. Sure, you got it. Alright, so we have double blue already. Definitely just need a red source here. Unsummon's pretty good. Hit a couple of counters. Let's go to attack, see how they block. Okay, so they're just not a very good Magic player, I guess. So we kill their eagle and bounce their other creatures, so now they have to rebuild. So that's kind of the downside of kind of trying to bluff people out in the unranked queues, is a lot of just newer or less experienced players, and you just can't really bluff them. Alright, so here's where we get that sweet, sweet Domri's Ambush Dreadhorde Arcanist value. Do you have a response opponent, or are you just reading the cards trying to figure out what's going on? Lofty Denial. Sure. So we still got the cast triggers. Play you. And you. And actually just going to Domri's Ambush. So we fight that. And that was an attack trigger, so our opponent's even get the block, and the board's clear, so we kill them. Do we actually want Fire Prophecy here? Actually, you probably should bring that in now that we know for sure what they're up against. I mean, we saw the Depose Deploy, and that and Teferi kind of threw me off. But now we know they're just kind of Azorius Flyers, but just kind of a weird build with Teferis and Depose Deploy. I mean, I guess Depose Deploy is pretty reasonable. It's something, you know, I would definitely consider running in certain builds. It's a bit awkward. Obviously, I do like the Dryad on 2 here. We got 2 tap lands, though. And the forest means we can't Beamsplitter Mage, but we probably want to Dryad first anyways, but then we still can't play the Beamsplitter on 3 unless we draw something like that. Beautiful. Alright, so we're in good shape. Alright, so still forest into Dryad, and then we just shock in, I think, for the Beamsplitter, and then we got the Passage on 4 for whatever we need. Alright, our opponent with a Dream Start here. So we could 3 cards in hand. Could also tempo them. It might actually be worth it. Alright, let's bounce. Let's slow them down. I don't want to open ourselves up to like an Imperial Eagle or something here. And we also save ourselves from potentially shocking into Stomping Ground, so it's a little bit safer play here. So next turn we can Dryad, and then we still have mana open to Unsummon or Stern Dismissal. They play the Borrower just as a 3/1 creature, so they want to be full aggro here. Alright, so we don't really want to bounce the Brazen Borrower back to their hand and give them that, but we don't really want to take 3 damage either, so we'll see what they play. I mean, we can do for a lot of damage out of nowhere in our deck, so taking, you know, a bunch of damage here isn't the worst. So no Eagle. Obviously we don't want our Dryad bounce it once it gets a bunch of counters on it. Hanged Executioner. So they gotta make a token. So that gives them removal. I think we still bounce the Watcher. That just represents a lot of damage for them. We're taking 4 here. And they could exile our Dryad at any time. Alright, play you. We'll crack for a red source. What's Beamsplitter? What's Fire Prophecy? That hang the execution before they get a chance to do anything. We're taking a lot of damage though. Alright, let's swing 3 first, see what they do. They do nothing, sure. That's the right play. Do we want to redraw? Infuriate could be pretty insane, especially if we find a Colossus. So I think we'll actually decline. And just hope we draw well here. We could have Unsummon to kind of buy us a little bit of time. We can bounce his Watcher or something, which can obviously get pretty big. Another Hanged Execution. I mean, they're obviously getting value off the Executioner here, but I didn't run it in my Azorius Flyers list. It just didn't quite feel good enough to me. Alright, so they're representing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're representing 9 damage right now. We're dead to an eagle no matter what. So we'll play you. Get those sweet, sweet counters. And we can't block anyway, so we'll attack. So we are missing a blue source, which hurts. We can't unsummon anything. We'll hold up. So I'm not sure why they blocked it. They actually had lethal. So maybe we actually should have not played the Beamsplitter Mage just to hold up the unsummon, just so we didn't die, but then our opponent did that. Although all I have to do is trigger the Watcher of the Spheres here, and I think we're dead no matter what. So our opponent went first. They had a kind of a perfect start. We were able to slow them down a little bit, but just not enough. And we're missing a blue source to get this unsummon off as well. No play from our opponent. That's 4. And they manually tap. There's an all attack button, opponent. You realize that, right? But they just manually tap. So they could have rallied wings. Like that. Okay, they're just going to hold up Lofty Denial. Exile my creature. Sure. Alright, so we're dead next turn unless we just draw something amazing. That is not it. So we hit for 10, opponent goes down to 3. And then they just kill us. Alright, well, super close game. Just didn't quite get there. Hanged Executioner, they made it work. So obviously their build is working out for them. We had a blue mana earlier that might have saved us as well. Colossus off the top obviously would have made a difference there. Yeah, close game. Obviously, sometimes just those 1 or 2 plays can make a difference. Gave my opponent the benefit of the doubt and didn't think they would block and trade with our Sprite Dragon, but you know, you can't bluff somebody like that. So it is what it is. All right, against Joe DeBongo. I mean, we do have a Dreadhorde Arcanist. So Lurus deck. Alright, so probably lead on the Arcanist, and then Lurus and Mazemind Tome. No idea what that means. So we'll lead on the Arcanist, and then we can haste in this Sprite Dragon. And cast maybe an Infuriate or something. It's a Piper of the Swarm. I was like, I wasn't gonna say veto, but if Lurus is their companion, it means they can't, they cannot do that. And we're actually missing blue to unsummon or Infuriate. That's fine. So we will just attack in the air. And next turn, if our board's intact, we can go off and do some pretty crazy stuff. Alright, so we will... Fabled Passage for... Kind of want a blue source, but we should probably just go grab a red source. Start making rats. We can bounce the rats, so they don't really care too much about that. I think with Stomping Ground, we'll go ahead and crack this now for a blue source. Alright, let's... Infuriate. Unsummon. We'll go and unsummon the Piper as well as the token. We can always replay some stuff next turn. That way we get the maximum value here. And given all the good stuff in our graveyard, we'll go ahead and fire off this Infuriate. Divine Arrow. Sure. So I could have waited till we did that, and then maybe we target the Sprite Dragon with the Infuriate, and then you kill it in response. But or was that on the stack and they would have got a counter? Kind of lost track there. Maybe they did that at the right time. Well, they're down to 12. We have an ambush in play. Daxos. Piper of the Swarm. Gain a life. Cool. Another Arcanist. Alright, bye-bye Daxos. No life gain. You can make rat tokens all you want if you want to just tap out and make 1/1 tokens. Cool. Got second Arcanist down. Just unsummon it for now. Can ambush later maybe. Save it for let's see what else they have. They're going to gain some life off this Maze Mind Tome here in a couple turns. So we have to keep that in mind. They're effectively at gain 4 life. They're effectively at 15. Unless we can kill them next turn. I don't see how that's going to happen with this board state. Now they got the Lurus in hand, and they can get their Daxos back in play. Well, that's pretty good. So we can Colossus. And Unsummon. Are we hitting for lethal now? See, that's 5 and 6. Whoa, exactly 11. Yep, you can scroll all you want, buddy. Whew, that was close. Collision Colossus, love that card. Whew. And Dreadhorde Arcanist. Alright, so against a Lurus, Daxos, Piper of the Swarm. I'm going to fly over their tokens. I probably just want to try to keep those off the board. Fire Prophecy hits the Piper at least. And could hit an early Daxos. How does Daxos work? Devotion, yeah, devotion to white for the toughness. They don't have much devotion, so could also likely kill it with that. Keep safe. They do have some tricks, so let's actually bring in the keep safe. Orzhov, they're gonna have some removal, so we'll try that. Could do Ranger's Guile instead, though. Alright, let's bring in the Ranger's Guile as well. And try like that. Not too worried about their creatures. I think we can trample and fly over them pretty easily. We just need to protect ourselves from removal. And just try to kill them before they can kind of go wide. I guess they're just trying to make a bunch of rats and then gain a bunch of life off Daxos. Sure. I mean, it's a Lurus deck, so there could be running Pride Mates and things like that. Pretty much, if you have any sort of life gain synergy, then obviously you'd probably want to take a look at Pride Mate. But we do have the Unsummons. Here we go. No red, so I don't think we can keep this. We're on the draw, so maybe, but only 22 lands. It's a little iffy. This is better. Oh man. Looks like we're missing blue. We are missing blue. Well, I don't want to go down to 5, so we will. A good game. Sure. Well, if we don't draw blue, then we might just be dead. Dawn of Hope is pretty annoying. I guess we just lose this one to the Shuffler. So they're just playing a bunch of random creatures. Cool. And General's Enforcer. Protects Lurus and Daxos, I guess. We gotta go first. Oh man, these hands. So brutal. We'll keep and we'll ditch the passage. Want to keep all these creatures, all these spells. So. Lead on the Arcanist, fought up with Sprite Dragon. Maybe we find a third land. Maybe bounce something with Unsummon. There it is. So we need red, so we'll get the Arcanist down. We have a Sprite Dragon, and if at least one of these creatures live, then we definitely have a legitimate chance to close this out pretty quickly. Obviously taking the mulligan hurt quite a bit, but... Ooh. Hello there, Quirion. Yeah, let's go for that. Opponent's not doing much, so I'm fine with just swinging for 1. And trying to get maximized value on the Dryad here, especially with a trample effect in hand. If we have any reasonable draws, we could do some pretty crazy things. We'll keep the Unsummon for the Sprite Dragon, right? We have blue, red, and then a blue open, yep. Whew, another Colossus. So this game could be over next turn. Could be over next turn, I repeat. So we got Unsummon in our bin, nothing to unsummon though, so we will decline. That's my Unsummon is you can target your own creatures, so protect them from like removal spells, but obviously not doing it in this spot. Right here we could Colossus on our Arcanist, go to combat, target the Dryad, it's going to get a couple counters, this is going to get a couple counters, and then we're trampling through with these two, and this is flying through the air for a bunch of damage, so they probably need a board wipe or something really impactful here. If they just play Daxos, is that enough? Just an Orator. Cool. Well, now we can just kind of go off and do all the things. All of the things. Alright. Good. Oh, we're missing the appropriate mana. Alright. Well, we do get to cast one out of our graveyard. Yeah, we're not going to unsummon your little Orator. We're just going to trample through for 1,000,000 damage. Alright, well our opponent saw the writing on the wall. Let's do the math here. So we got a 5/5 trample. We've got a 4/4. That's going to get a counter still, I believe. So it's going to be a 5/5 plus 4 trample, so 9. And I believe this would be a 4/4. So that's 4 in the air. And then they're taking 9, and they can block 2. They at 1? Or is that or am I math wrong and they're exactly lethal? I mean, they could block with the Orator and go down to 1 and then wipe the board, and then they have a handful of cards. Huh. But hey, our deck did what it was supposed to do. Sweet. Not bad for having a mulligan. So yeah, super fun deck. Definitely play tested it enough to where I feel good about showing it. I don't know if it's quite fully tuned for like competitive play. Obviously, best of one, this deck can do really, really well, like I said. Best of three, sideboard still not entirely sure. This is how the sideboard should be. Haven't really played around with the new meta, like I said. Maximize altitude, maybe still kind of a flex spot. I do like the Raking Claws. It's pretty impressive, but maybe that could be a flex slot as well. Same thing with Samut Sprint. All these 2-0s basically are maybe something you could kind of substitute in. As far as on a budget, Sprite Dragon, Beamsplitter Mage, and Dryad are all uncommons. Arcanist does rotate. It's a rare. If you don't have all 4 of these, deck isn't quite as good. I guess Burning Prophet is kind of a budget option because it's a 1/3 that lets you scry and gets +1 whenever you do things. And if you give it, trample with Colossus, then it becomes pretty reasonable. And then maybe you just find maybe some more trample effects, things like that. What else do we have in standard that gives trample? Bargain. That was one card I was kind of looking at. Unfortunately, it's a non-humans gain trample, so Burning Prophet is a human. So that does not work as far as that goes. You could just run Crash Through, I guess. That would give your creatures trample. Frosty the Wilds, yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. So yeah, I think just Crash Through is probably your best bet if you're kind of looking for some budget alternatives. Like I said, all these two ofs are kind of some flex slots if you want to try to, if you think they're not optimal for competitive play, feel free to take those out. But yeah, the Quirion Dryad, Beamsplitter Mage, Sprite Dragon with Collision Colossus, Domri's Ambush, all really, really amazing together. Dreadhorde Arcanist is so worth it if you have this card, and even if you don't have this card and you're thinking about crafting it, it's going to rotate. But if you play Historic at all, it's still going to be a worthwhile card in that format as well. It's just really, really good. Obviously, you have to play the right deck, but super powerful. Got a ton of value there. I was happy to showcase that. And yeah, mana base, I definitely want to leave 22 lands. If you don't have the Triomes, just run more Fabled Passage or something for some fixing. And hopefully it's something that's you can play untapped, like not like any Evolving Wilds, because you really want to play on curve. The faster you can play with this kind of a deck, absolutely the better. Sure, you can still have some explosive turns out of nowhere, even if you get off to a little bit of a slow start, which we kind of stumbled with our opening hands in a couple of those matches, and we were able to kind of recover and have those really explosive turns. So you can, but yeah, you definitely want to try to get these creatures out as quickly as possible, so then you can start playing your spells and just murdering your opponent with like 10, 15, 20 damage with like 2 creatures. It's pretty insane, just lots of fun. And sideboard, I feel like this gives you a variety of answers, and I think it's pretty reasonable overall. Like I said, I haven't really played too much with the ban, so maybe some of these cards aren't quite where they should be. So definitely tune this to what you're liking, but I like this as a starting point. And yeah, I would definitely feel happy running this in ranked play. I just don't really play a whole lot of ranked, and just wasn't really in the mood for it tonight. So yeah, I feel like this is a pretty good showcase for the deck. So thanks for watching, guys, and until next time, make sure you jank with purpose.